Every day, I dig up another wild story from the Golden Age, the kind that reminds us why that era will never be forgotten. If you love these old-school Hollywood tales as much as I do, hit subscribe. It's free, but it keeps this magic alive. Thanks for hanging out here. Now let's dive in.
Well, I've been to bed, but...
To sleep is what I meant.
A number of people.
Johnny Carson had a full-time job just keeping it together on that stage because half his guests showed up dressed like icons but acted like they just landed from another planet. Some legends wandered in like they were lost backstage at the Oscars. Oscar winners tossed Johnny's note cards into the air like confetti. And there were nights when The Tonight Show turned into pure live TV chaos. Some of it was hilarious. Other times, it was a straight-up mess. So buckle in. Here are the 10 wildest guests who turned The Tonight Show into a Hollywood circus. Let's start with number 1, looking way too relaxed for live television. Dean Martin. The man could stroll out from behind that curtain smoother than anyone, always with a drink in hand like it was part of his outfit. But once he hit that couch, that slick charm started to crack, and everyone could feel something was off. He'd mumble through setups, slur his punchlines, and sometimes greet Johnny like they'd just met that night, even though these two had shared that stage countless times. The crowd laughed at first because, hey, it was Dean, and people loved his easygoing vibe. But after a few minutes, it was clear this wasn't just casual Dean, this was live TV walking a tightrope. Then the crowd slowly caught on. This wasn't some rehearsed comedy bit at all. What looked smooth and charming on Dean's own variety show started falling apart under Carson's quick, tight rhythm. Johnny tried to save him, tossing those easy questions he knew Dean could normally knock out of the park without even trying. But instead, Dean would cut Johnny off mid-sentence, slur half-finished stories, or suddenly drift toward the band like he forgot the cameras were still rolling. He started mixing up movie titles, blanking on the film he was supposed to promote, and every now and then he'd just stop talking altogether, like the thought slipped out of his head and vanished into the studio lights. It got so unpredictable that producers learned to pad the show's schedule whenever Dean was booked. Sometimes his segments ran too long, sometimes they fizzled out into awkward silences, and sometimes they ended with a sudden, disparate cut to commercial. Still, there were flashes, little moments when that legendary Dean Martin charm would break through again, reminding everyone why he was Dean Martin. But every appearance became a gamble on live TV. Would viewers get the smooth-talking superstar everyone adored, or a man barely holding on to his own Hollywood image before their eyes? Number 2, Ed McMahon. This one really caught people off guard, because Ed McMahon was supposed to be Johnny's rock, the steady right-hand man who never missed a beat. But one unforgettable night, when he was supposed to introduce Joan Emery from the San Diego Zoo, Ed walked on looking a little too loose, and within seconds, the whole vibe went sideways fast.
How you been, Joey?
Hello. Good to see you.
How'd all these people get in your room?
You're gonna start already, huh?
No, I'm not starting.
How are you?
I'm almost through. You weren't on last night.
I certainly was.
You were not. I watched that little girl sing.
What little girl sing?
One of the angels, Cheryl Ladd.
No, you were watching Charlie's... No, that was
Monday night.
That was Monday night.
I wasn't here then.
No, that was Monday night.
They had that Rainier guy from... Oh, no, Bob Reiner.
Rob Reiner.
Rob, yeah.
Huh?
It's close to Rainier, yeah.
He got fixated on one thing: how many years Joan had been coming on the show. Was it 7, 8, 9? He couldn't let it go. Ed kept arguing with himself, repeating numbers like he was doing math out loud, even though it was clear he had no clue what the real answer was. Johnny tried to save it, smoothly steering things back to the animals, but Ed wasn't following the script anymore. Instead, he drifted into slurred stories about baby lions, random, disconnected, and making zero sense to anyone watching. Johnny did his best to keep the moment afloat, gently teasing Ed, joking that maybe he needed a nap, and doing everything he could to pull the show back together before it completely fell apart on live TV. But Ed wasn't done. He kept bouncing between getting defensive and strangely emotional, like his mood was flipping every few seconds. Things got even messier when he started cutting off Joan's introduction, jumping in mid-sentence as if he just couldn't stop himself. One moment he'd get misty-eyed over nothing. The next he'd look completely lost, forgetting what he'd just said a minute earlier. It was uncomfortable, unpredictable, and impossible to ignore. Johnny finally had to step in, quickly bringing Joan out just to save the segment from totally falling apart. It was one of those rare moments when the famously steady, professional Ed McMahon, the guy everyone trusted to hold the show together, showed up visibly intoxicated, rambling, interrupting, and completely out of sync. Johnny suddenly found himself running damage control on live TV, keeping that legendary Tonight Show charm alive while quietly steering chaos back into line. Now, number 3. Truman Capote. In 1980, Truman Capote arrived so heavily intoxicated that the entire interview turned into one of the most painfully awkward moments ever broadcast on the show. Truman already had a bit of a reputation for unpredictable talk show behavior, but this night he pushed it way over the edge. The man could barely make it to the chair. He shuffled across the stage, his feet dragging, gripping Johnny's desk like it was the only thing keeping him upright. When he finally dropped into the couch, the room went silent because everyone watching could tell this was about to get wild, and there was no way to predict what would happen next. It was like gravity itself was out for him. Truman could barely stay upright. His eyes were glassy, and Johnny greeted him carefully, trying to keep things smooth, praying it wasn't as bad as it looked. But it was, way worse. Truman slurred nearly every word, stringing together fragments that barely formed sentences. The audience froze in stunned silence, caught between disbelief and secondhand embarrassment. This wasn't just anyone. This was Truman Capote, the brilliant author of In Cold Blood, one of America's most respected literary voices. And yet here he was, struggling to speak clearly on national television. When Johnny gently asked about his latest writing project, Truman suddenly drifted into a bizarre story about a party in the Hamptons and somebody's dog, but no one, even Johnny, could follow what he was talking about.
He'd start one sentence, lose it halfway through, jump into another, and then forget that one too, leaving the whole room holding its breath. Out of nowhere, he turned to Ed McMahon and asked, completely serious, if he could sit in his lap. Ed let out an awkward laugh, the kind that said, "Please let this end soon," while Johnny did his best to wrestle the show back on track without making things worse. Then, just when it seemed it couldn't get any more uncomfortable, Capote picked up a glass of water, went to take a sip, and missed his mouth entirely. The audience gasped, Johnny froze, and for a moment, even live TV felt like it didn't know what to do next. The rim of the glass smacked against Truman's chin, water splashed down his shirt, and he didn't even flinch. The entire studio went dead silent. This wasn't the lighthearted, tipsy humor people expected from Hollywood personalities. This was raw, awkward, and almost painful to watch. After about 7 excruciating minutes, Johnny finally made the call. He cut to an early commercial break just to cool things off and give everyone a moment to breathe. When they returned, they tried to finish the interview, but the tension was thick. After just a few more minutes, Johnny wrapped it up as quickly and gracefully as he could. Capote slowly shuffled off stage, and that turned out to be the last time he ever appeared on the show. The clip went down in TV history, a Pulitzer Prize-winning author so intoxicated he could barely sit upright on national television. Number 5, Shelley Winters. Now, Shelley had always been known for showing up with a little buzz, but her 1974 appearance wasn't just messy, it was legendary chaos. From the second she stepped through that curtain, it was like a storm had hit the stage. She talked over Johnny, interrupted every sentence, and completely dominated the conversation. 2 other guests were seated that night, but you never know it. Shelley made sure not a single one of them got a word in. The energy was wild, unpredictable, and absolutely unforgettable. Johnny tried to keep things on track, asking Shelley simple, friendly questions, but she blew right past every single one like they didn't exist. Instead, she launched into wild rants about random people nobody in the room even recognized. It was like she had her own agenda and wasn't about to let anyone stop her. One of the guests that night was a young actor there to promote his very first big movie. This was supposed to be his moment, but Shelley turned toward him, grabbed his knee, and started roasting his film right there on national television. She told him his movie was boring and even accused him of giving a wooden performance. The poor guy froze in place, smiling awkwardly while clearly wishing he could disappear right into that couch. Johnny tried to step in, defending the young actor and steering things back to safer ground, but Shelley was on a roll and she wasn't listening to anyone. Then came the moment that stunned the entire audience. Shelley's eyes landed on Johnny's stack of note cards, the carefully written questions his writers had prepared. Without a second thought, she reached over, snatched the whole pile straight out of Johnny's hands, and tossed them over her shoulder like garbage. Cards went flying across the floor as the audience gasped so loudly it shook the whole studio. Johnny just sat there, completely speechless. Nobody had ever done that on his show. But Shelley, she just kept talking like nothing had happened. After nearly 12 minutes of chaos, Johnny finally threw in the towel and called for an early commercial break. Once the camera stopped rolling, NBC execs had seen enough. They blacklisted Shelley Winters and told her agent she was officially done with The Tonight Show. The ban lasted almost 3 years before Shelley was finally allowed back, and when she returned, NBC made sure she knew the rules. She had to show up sober, stay professional, and treat every guest with respect, no exceptions. Now for number 5, Orson Welles. Now, Orson was already famous for enjoying a good drink before his Tonight Show visits, but his 1975 appearance, that one went down in history. Before he even left his dressing room, he'd reportedly gone through multiple bottles of wine, and crew members actually spotted him sipping more backstage right up until he walked out. So by the time he stepped into the spotlight, it was clear he wasn't just tipsy, he was Orson Welles level tipsy. Somehow, he still carried himself like a mix of Shakespearean king and a charming train wreck. Brilliant, dramatic, and totally unpredictable. Johnny started things off easy, tossing him one simple question, and Orson ran with it like a man possessed. What was supposed to be a quick exchange turned into a full-blown 14-minute monologue with no pauses, no breaths, and no chance for Johnny to even blink. He opened with a thunderous Shakespeare analysis that actually impressed the room, then spun off into stories from his own Hollywood career, detoured into theater history, and somehow ended up telling a wild story about a Hungarian director nobody in the room ever heard of. It was chaotic, dazzling, and impossible to look away from. At one point, Orson tried quoting Hamlet. He made it about 3 lines in before completely forgetting the actual words and just making up his own ones. But here's the wild part. He delivered it with so much booming confidence that the audience didn't even know what to do. Some people started clapping. Others just looked around, trying to figure out if this was genius or pure confusion.
About 9 years.
Right, yeah. Several plus several would be about 9.
You said 7 or 8.
No, I said.
Spend-
No, I didn't say 7 or 8. I said several.
Then you said 7 or 8, and I said
Did
it's
I?
9. yes.
9. Good. Thank you.
Some of the animals you had as babies are now 10 years old.
That would be about right.
Remember the animals that did something funny on your tie?
Yes,
Those little lions, the little baby lions, were 1 year old.
that's right.
They are now treacherous and ferocious 10-year-old animals.
Okay. Anyway, Joan Embry is here tonight.
And she's now 32.
That's right.
Johnny sat there completely drained, searching for any small gap to jump in, but Orson didn't leave him a single second. No breath, no pause, just 14 non-stop minutes of pure Wells on wine energy, turning The Tonight Show into his own private theater. At one point, Johnny even shot the camera a helpless look that practically screamed, "I've lost total control." The audience couldn't look away because even while clearly intoxicated, Orson Welles was still magnetic. He was chaotic, yes, but still fascinating to watch. The problem was there was no structure whatsoever. It was just Orson riffing about anything that floated into his mind. Shakespeare, fame, old stage stories, random history lessons, all swirling together in one unforgettable live TV moment.
And the craziest part? Johnny still kept inviting him back, because when Orson showed up focused and sharp, he was untouchable. Smart, captivating, and one of the best talk show guests ever. You just never knew which version of him was going to walk through that curtain, the genius or the whirlwind. Number 6, Oliver Reed. Now, Oliver was the only person on this list who almost never got near the Tonight Show stage. And that's because Johnny Carson straight up didn't want to take that risk. Oliver Reed was actually booked for a 1973 appearance. He was a rise-in film star at the time, and on paper it should have been perfect TV. But NBC had already seen what happened when Oliver showed up on other talk shows, and let's just say it wasn't pretty. Producers rolled the tapes for Johnny, and what he saw left him speechless. In those clips, Reed was completely out of control, slurring through interviews, threatening to drop his pants on live TV, straight up insulting hosts, demanding more drinks in the middle of conversations, and even getting physically aggressive when things didn't go his way. It was total live television chaos. Johnny sat there watching the footage of Oliver spiraling on stage and didn't hesitate for a second. He pulled the plug immediately. The appearance was canceled on the spot, and from that day on, Oliver Reed never once appeared on The Tonight Show during Johnny's entire 30-year reign. Of course, Oliver didn't take it quietly. He later mocked Johnny in interviews, calling him scared and uptight, but Johnny wasn't losing sleep over it. After years of wrangling unpredictable guests who could turn a live broadcast upside down in seconds, Carson had learned his lesson. He wasn't about to add Oliver Reed, Hollywood's wildest loose cannon, to that list. Number 7, Peter O'Toole. Now, Peter was a whole different kind of wild card, the kind of guest who could deliver pure brilliance or complete mayhem, depending entirely on which version of him walked through that door. Peter O'Toole's 1978 appearance was one for the history books because it gave viewers both brilliance and chaos in a single sitting. He showed up after what insiders called a very enthusiastic afternoon of drinking, and honestly, you could practically smell it in the air the moment he took his seat. Johnny opened with a simple question about Lawrence of Arabia, but Peter completely ignored it and dove straight into an intense lecture on acting technique. For the first minute, he was mesmerizing, sharp, witty, full of fire. You could see flashes of genius lighting up the room. Then, just as fast, he drifted into total confusion, rambling through sentences that didn't quite add up. Seconds later, he'd snap back to brilliance again, flipping between genius and gibberish like someone changing channels inside his own mind. Then came the moment nobody saw coming. In the middle of his ramble, O'Toole grabbed Johnny's pen right off the desk, turned it into a pretend fencing foil, and suddenly challenged Carson to an impromptu fencing lesson right there on live TV. Johnny was cracking up, half laughing, half trying to get control of the situation, while Peter lunged and parried across the stage like he was back in a sword-fighting epic. Before the crowd could catch its breath, O'Toole launched into a string of wild drinking stories involving his old friend Richard Harris, the kind of tales that probably weren't meant for national television. It was total madness and pure magic at the same time. The audience couldn't get enough. They were roaring with laughter. And Johnny? He was loving it too. Even when Peter was unpredictable, his charm and charisma were impossible to resist. Carson kept inviting him back because honestly, even a sloppy Peter O'Toole was still more entertaining than most guests on their best day. Number 8. Foster Brooks. Foster made his name playing the lovable drunk, the guy who'd slur, stumble, and forget names in the funniest way possible. That was Foster Brooks's signature move, the lovable, tipsy character who could slur a sentence into pure comedy gold. But on at least 2 Tonight Show appearances, the staff started realizing something wasn't quite right. The act was starting to feel a little too real. Brooks was known to have a drink or two before going on stage. It helped him warm up and slip into his famous routine. But sometimes those 2 drinks turned into, well, more. During one particular appearance, things went sideways fast. In the middle of his bit, he slipped completely out of character. The slurring wasn't part of the performance anymore, and suddenly he couldn't remember his own lines. You could feel the whole room pause as the line between comedy and reality blurred right there in front of everyone. Johnny noticed it instantly and jumped into rescue mode like a pro. Instead of letting the awkwardness show, he leaned right in, laughing, improvising, and turning the entire meltdown into a hilarious moment, all without embarrassing Foster in the slightest. It was pure late-night magic, Johnny at his smoothest, saving the show in real time. After the taping, crew members admitted what everyone suspected. Foster wasn't just acting drunk that night, he really was. The mix of performance and reality was so tangled up that no one could tell where the bit ended and the buzz began, creating one of the strangest, funniest, and most chaotic performances in Tonight Show history. Number 9. Robert Blake. Robert had several Tonight Show appearances over the years, but one in particular completely went off the rails. And yep, it all started because he'd been drinking heavily backstage. Staff members later described Robert Blake's mood that night as running purely on liquid courage. The energy he brought to the stage was electric, but also downright tense. From the moment he sat down, you could tell this wasn't going to be an ordinary interview.
Blake came in hot, cutting Johnny off mid-sentence, ignoring every attempt to guide him toward talking about his new movie, which was the entire reason he was booked in the first place. Instead, he went off on a fiery rant about Hollywood's phoniness, blasting the industry live on air while somehow trying to promote himself at the same time. It was messy, aggressive, and confusing, and the tension in the studio was thick enough to cut with a knife. Johnny handled it like a professional, keeping his cool, smiling through the chaos, but you could tell he was ready for that commercial break. After the show, he told his producers to double-check with Blake's team before ever bringing him back, and to make sure he came sober next time. A drunk Robert Blake was unpredictable, volatile, and flat-out too risky for live television. The wildest part was how fast his energy flipped. When he first walked through that curtain, the crowd cheered. He had that tough guy swagger everyone recognized. But within seconds, his body language changed. His legs started bouncing, fingers tapping on the armrest, and his eyes darted around the audience like he was waiting for a fight that hadn't even started. His stare was wide, jittery, and intense, and everyone in that studio could feel the storm building right in front of him. When Johnny opened with a standard, harmless question about Robert Blake's latest project, things immediately went sideways. Blake didn't even try to answer. Instead, he launched into a rapid-fire story about his childhood days working on the Hollywood backlots, delivering it with this wild, jittery energy that froze the entire studio. The room went dead quiet. Nobody dared move. Then, without warning, Blake snapped back to the present and started accusing modern actors of never actually earning their fame. It was sharp, angry, and totally unexpected. Johnny tried to lighten the tension with a quick joke, hoping to reel things back in, but Blake didn't even seem to hear him. He was off and running like a runaway train. Every time Johnny gently tried steering the conversation toward the film, any film, Blake would veer off again, diving into something completely different. 1 second.
Sure, you can go right in. I feel perfectly
Have you been
fine.
drinking?
You mean very lately?
You have had a history of alcoholism. Millions of people out there have
My
also
God,
had this.
alcohol is the least of it.
He was standing up, reenacting a fight scene from his new movie, throwing invisible punches into the air. The next, he was ranting about agents, producers, and casting directors, shouting that they had no right to decide anyone's future. The energy was explosive, unpredictable, and hard to watch, but you couldn't look away. It was the kind of live TV chaos that made everyone in the audience sit frozen between shock and fascination. Johnny, trying to stay composed, glanced over at Ed McMahon with that silent look that said everything. We're losing control. It was pure, unscripted mayhem, the kind that became late-night legend. Johnny gave Ed McMahon that familiar side look he'd perfected over the years, the silent signal that meant this one's getting out of hand. Ed didn't say a word. He just gave a small nod like, yep, we're in trouble. The audience, unsure of how to react, laughed nervously at moments that weren't even jokes. Meanwhile, Carson kept that famous polished smile glued to his face, the kind that said everything's fine, even as he played referee in a live, unpredictable showdown. Blake was in his own world, pacing verbally from one wild topic to another with no warning and no structure. Then came the jaw-dropping moment that sent everyone on edge. Right in the middle of the interview, he suddenly stood up, completely unprompted, acting out some story about a director. The camera crew scrambled to keep him in frame, moving in tight while Johnny subtly lifted his hand, signaling him to sit back down. But Blake wasn't listening. Instead, he leaned over Johnny's desk, eyes intense, voice trembling with emotion, and launched into yet another monologue, this time about the brutal pressure of surviving in Hollywood for decades. It wasn't just anger, it was scattered, emotional, and completely unpredictable. The energy in the room felt electric and uneasy all at once. Most guests treated The Tonight Show like a golden opportunity, but Robert Blake treated it like a courtroom, fighting for his entire legacy right there in front of millions. Backstage, the crew was frozen, watching the monitors, whispering about whether they should cut to commercial early, but Johnny held firm. He refused to embarrass a guest unless there was absolutely no other choice. Johnny tried everything. Easy softball questions about the movie, the director, even the weather. Anything that might calm Robert Blake down and reset the energy in the room. But Blake wasn't having it. He swatted each question away like a fly and dove right back into old grudges, scattered flashbacks, and bursts of random anger that had nothing to do with what was being asked. You could almost see Johnny's mind working in real time, calculating how to keep things watchable without embarrassing his guest or letting the whole show derail. But Blake just steamrolled right over every attempt. Finally, Johnny managed to slip in a polite transition, offering a warm thank you to wrap it up. But Blake kept talking. Even as Doc Severson's band started playing the cue music for a commercial, Blake was still mid-rant, refusing to stop. Johnny slowly stood, placed a calm hand on Blake's shoulder, giving that gentle but firm signal, "We're done here." It took a second, but Blake finally caught on. He shuffled off awkwardly as the audience gave a strange, hesitant round of applause, half laughter, half nervous energy, unsure if they'd watched late-night comedy or something far more uncomfortable. Johnny turned to the camera with his classic smooth smile, keeping his composure until the red light switched off. Then instantly, his expression dropped. He walked back to his desk quietly, skipping his usual banter with the band. Meanwhile, Blake remained in his chair, muttering under his breath to anyone within earshot. His voice had lowered, but that wild intensity still lingered. A stagehand approached gently, leaning in to whisper for him to head backstage. And that's when everyone finally exhaled, realizing the moment was finally over. Blake just shrugged it off like nothing had happened, mumbling something about phonies as he shuffled toward backstage. But the moment he disappeared behind the curtain, chaos exploded in the control room. The director and producers were all talking at once, panicking over what had just gone out live. Could they even air that again for the West Coast feed? Was anything legally risky? Did Blake actually name anyone on air?
Staffers began replaying the segment with the sound muted, just watching the body language. Johnny leaning back in his chair, Ed McMahon staring dead ahead, and the audience's nervous laughter breaking like tiny cracks in the tension. You didn't even need the sound to feel how heavy the atmosphere had been. It was one of those rare live moments where everyone, crew, guests, and viewers, could sense something was way off. Finally, one associate producer said what everyone was already thinking: "We can never let that happen again." The room went quiet for a second, that statement hanging in the air like an unspoken rule carved into stone. Backstage, the tension didn't fade. Staff members moved carefully, avoiding Blake's dressing room like it was a live wire. Nobody wanted to risk getting pulled into another rant or trapped in a hallway with him mid-monologue. The air was thick with unease, the kind that only live TV chaos can create. Then, through the controlled madness, Johnny finally appeared, still perfectly dressed, jacket crisp, tie flawless, that calm TV smile still in place. But as he walked past the crew, his shoulders dropped just slightly, the only sign that the night had taken its toll. Johnny handled the end of it like a true pro, polite, professional, and steady. He thanked Robert Blake for coming, shook his hand, and kept his composure, but there wasn't a hint of warmth left in his tone. The message was clear without a single harsh word. The second Blake exited the building, Johnny turned to his producer and didn't sugarcoat a thing. "Next time, we need to know exactly what we're walking into. If he's had anything to drink, we pass." That one sentence turned into official Tonight Show policy by the next morning. Within hours, the booking team quietly added a note next to Blake's name on every contact sheet. Confirmed state before arrival. If a publicist so much as hinted that Blake had been near a bar, the show rescheduled or sent him somewhere else entirely. It wasn't about grudges, it was about survival. Johnny's empire was built on live television that felt wild but never spiraled out of control. And this was a hard reminder of how thin that line really was. When the stage finally cleared that night, the relief backstage was almost physical, like a pressure valve had just released. One crew member later said it felt like leaving a room where someone had been shouting, but you couldn't walk out until they stopped. Everyone was drained, the laughter long gone. Johnny, still calm but clearly done with the drama, went straight to his producer and spelled it out again. Robert Blake was too unpredictable, too emotional, too much of a loose cannon once the drinks kicked in. From that night forward, the rule was simple: no more surprises on live TV. A talk show host could handle plenty of things: nervous guests, boring guests, even those who rambled a little too much, but not someone who came in ready to take over the entire show with wild, unpredictable energy. From that night forward, Johnny made it official: no Blake booking unless he's completely sober, no exceptions. It became a standing rule in the Tonight Show playbook. The team had to check for any sign of alcohol before confirming a guest slot. If there was even the faintest hint that Blake had been drinking, the call was simple: cancel or reschedule. Everyone agreed. A sober Robert Blake might be intense, but he was manageable. A drunk Robert Blake? That was pure, unstoppable chaos waiting to happen. Looking back, every personality on this list proves one unforgettable truth: even the most polished, tightly run TV show can be hijacked by raw human unpredictability. For 30 decades, Johnny Carson walked that tightrope, managing chaos with a perfect blend of humor, lightning-fast wit, and quiet authority. Some guests he smoothed over with charm, some he cut off with a quick commercial break, and a few, like Blake, he simply never booked again. But each of these moments captures what made live television so addictive: that fragile, heart-pounding thrill where anything could happen at any second. Because sometimes someone walks through that curtain drunk, unpredictable, and completely unaware of the storm they're about to start. And all a host can do is smile, stay calm, and survive those next 7 minutes, praying the audience never realizes just how close the whole thing came to falling apart. This has been Velvet Screen Secrets. Which of these wild guest stories shocked you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that like button if you felt something real, and don't forget to subscribe and share for more unbelievable Hollywood stories that shook the golden age of television.